Sheshnak Yoga Center. I take my hat off, man, get a bit more respect. What am I doing? Energy, frequency, sensory perception and light. Does anyone get the fact that we are made up in a world where our soul sits in a vehicle that perceives sine curves? That's all we are. The sine curves are perceived relative to their vibration, frequency and wavelength through the 5 physical senses, and sometimes, if lucky enough, with the brain hemispheres balanced, an individual can tap into the dimension of being beyond the space-time continuum. In the words of Emmett Brown from Back to the Future. So ultimately, everything that you perceive is some form of light or sits on what we call the electromagnetic spectrum, which is a range of vibrations that humans experience and have termed and labelled how they see fit. There was a guy who sort of got quashed 100 or so years ago. His name was Nicholas Tesla. He stated that if you wanted to know the secrets of the universe, then think in terms of energy, frequency and vibration. He got pushed out because he wasn't buyable by the corporations, and they endorsed Thomas Edison at his expense. Ultimately, we've come to the end of the run of the century of the self, and the corporations' pull and power is slowly waning. The scientific side of life relative to the anatomy is rarely talked about, endorsed or even considered. If there was one essential subject on this planet, I would say it would be physics, because physics allows people to be able to comprehend how the world is put together from an atomic level right up to everything, the biggest organism. And ultimately all it is, really small things spinning around each other fast enough and quick enough to be perceived as solid, fluid, subgaseous or gas. And it doesn't matter what you perceive. In the body, the majority of perceptions are a frequency. The energy is predominantly experienced as light, and relative to the atomic structure of the object, it is perceived by the human framework as a colour, a texture, and shape, as well as so many variables that it is hard to list. Ultimately, we sit in a massive web of energy. The sine curves, if no one knows what a sine curve is, go and sit at the beach. The way the waves move is a representation through a collective mass of fluid that constantly shifts energy. on an atomic level, the waves are so small that even the best human instruments are yet to be able to represent them accurately. But everything in this world is an experience of a wavelength that goes like that, and it's perceived as light by the eyes, odour by the nose, taste in the 6 different regions of where they vibrate on your tongue, sound, form. That's how we perceive the energy. And the light, ultimately, is the major way that we perceive most things. Hopefully, that makes a little bit of sense. So energetically speaking, when I refer to the serpent or the creative sustainer of that collective web of energy, all it is an energy in the form of these waves that ultimately could represent the symbol of the serpent, or be validated if I was to explain those waves that I saw in the sky that no one else saw. Then I could say they were snake-like waves, because no one really knows what a scientific curve looks like. But anyway, the snake, 1,000-headed serpent, Sheshnag, seen as the sustainer of all life and also the creator of the universe. The human framework built in the image of this creator on an energetic level, imperceivable to the naked eye, untangible to the ears, tongue, nose, and fingers. Maybe not the fingers, because you can feel different energy levels when you do that with your hands as you go past different pranavayus. But ultimately, the energy, that web we sit in, so vast, but most people don't comprehend it. They're more interested in Hollywood stars or musicians or cooks. They don't realise that all they are seeing is something that either validates or invalidates their opinion, and it's a perception of an electromagnetic frequency through the 5 physical senses. To them it's really a person, or really important. But that doesn't matter. Ultimately, I'm just explaining the fact that we are all made up of energy. And the only constant thing in the energy seems to be the space. And there's way more space than there is anything else. It is said that within the space lies consciousness. But that's a story for another day. Ultimately, we're in a web of energy, perceive that through our 5 physical senses. The light is important because that alters ultimately our experience of everything. And the light, seen through the eyes, gives us the majority of our perception. That's about it. Just a bit of science. Start off at basic level, we'll go from there, work up, we'll go through the chakras, come to the how I'm made in the image of the Creator. Om Namah Shivaya, peace. Long live the Kundalini. What on earth is Kundalini?